Ladies and gentle goobers, we've finally done it. We've reached the end of Showa Gamera. It seems like yesterday I was starting the series with literally zero intention of making it a series building up to Gamera Rebirth, but here I am now. Anyways, last time on the Gamera Retrospective, Gamera faced off against some strange and wacky monsters, all while the world of Japanese cinema began to slowly crumble around them. Gamera, however, was still able to keep his identity and charm and managed to pump out a pretty okay film and also Gamera vs Zigra. Now we've reached the end. Japanese cinema is still crumbling and now Gamera has hit its home stretch. Will these last two films be able to keep up the quality that Showa Gamera has been running with? Let's find out as we talk about the end of Showa Gamera in this episode of the Gamera Retrospective. So Gamera vs Zigra did not keep up the quality that Showa Gamera has been running with. I didn't hate this one, but it's undeniably the worst of the Showa Gamera movies so far, and is also the first Gamera movie I've seen in which I can confidently say I did not like it. Let's start with the thing that absolutely kills this movie the most for me, and that is the pacing. This movie is an hour and a half long, and it could have probably been cut down to the length of the theatrical cut of Gamera vs Virus and have lost basically nothing. I will admit that the first 20 to 25 minutes of this thing are okay. You get introduced to the characters, the primary setting for their movie, the central conflict, and the main monsters. That's all fine and dandy. After that though, you get a lot of scenes that don't add anything to the movie and scenes that drag on for way longer than they need to. Stuff like the two kids getting stuck on the island and thinking that they traveled to the past, the military attacking the Zigra ship, Gamera fighting against Zigra underwater, Zigra confronting our characters in the submarine, etc. They just drag on. I was getting really bored while watching them, and it makes the final fight between Gamera and Zigra just not exciting in the slightest, except for one part which I'll mention later. That's arguably the biggest thing, but my problems with this movie don't stop there. The kids in this one, Ken and Helen, I'm not really a fan of them. You know how in Gamera vs Zigra I criticized the kids in that movie just kind of knowing all of the things that there is to know about Zigra? Zigra has this problem too, but it's even worse. Somehow they know exactly how to operate an alien spaceship, but they don't know how to operate a boat. I really just don't get it. I don't really have anything else to say about the character stuff in this. It's basically just nothing. I cannot tell you a single thing about them. Let's move on. Once again, this is an alien invasion movie. Also another case that just kind of proves that Gamera is just better when he's fighting Earth-based monsters, but whatever. The aliens suck in this. They're unbelievably incompetent at what they do. Everyone loves to rag on about that one lady that chases the kids around Kamogama SeaWorld! We'll get to that in a minute, but I just want to talk about Zigra himself for a moment. So Zigra, the monster villain of the movie, is just like Virus, in that both of them are actually sentient alien creatures. Now, in Virus, I sort of made fun of this because it meant that all the horrific violence that he was inflicting on Gamera was totally intentional and with purpose, and I thought that was kind of funny. In Zigra, however, I thought it was just stupid. I hate this stupid shark thing, which is a real damn shame because design-wise, he might be my favorite out of all the Showa Gamera enemies. Gyaos and Barugon are pretty cool to look at, but Zigra's armored shark aesthetic just really works for me. But in the movie, he's a complete joke. Anytime he has a chance to kill the characters, he just chooses not to for some reason. One of the first things that he tells the alien girl is that he wants to have the kids killed because they know too much about their technology or something like that. And then, when he has the perfect chance to, he just turns around and charges at them again. Like, what's the point of this? He also makes it clear that the reason that he doesn't want to wipe out humanity is so he can use them as a food source because he's from a society where sea creatures eat the land creatures. Okay, sure, that's fine. Later in the movie though, Gamera shows up and destroys the Zigra spaceship, causing Zigra to grow in size due to the difference in water pressure, and he's just like, lol, let's just kill all the humans anyway for something that they did not do. Dude, what's your game here? You don't make a lick of sense. I hope you die in a fire. So that's what happened. Just to be clear, they hold on this shot for 43 seconds. They wanted to make sure that you knew that Gamera didn't just kill him, but he gave Zigra a first-class ticket to hell. Looking past the fact that I don't like Zigra, this was honestly the best part of the movie for me. I love it whenever a piece of kaiju media just destroys one of the props for a particular monster. It is consistently one of the rawest things that it can do. Here's something I was thinking about a lot in regards to this movie. So earlier in the movie, it's been established that there's been a couple of massive earthquakes in places like the Middle East and South America, registering at a magnitude 12 on the Richter scale. This intrigued me, so I decided to do some research into it. Now, I don't need to introduce you to the Richter scale at all. It's a system that measures how powerful an earthquake is. It's logarithmic, which means that every point is 10 times more powerful than the previous. You get the gist. Now, let's put some things into context. The earthquake that hit Japan in 2011 registered at a 9.1. The most powerful earthquake ever recorded in human history was in Chile in 1960, which registered at around 9.5 on the Richter scale. The earthquakes in Gamera vs Zigra registered at 12. Naturally curious about this, I decided to search up what could possibly cause such a massive earthquake, and apparently one did happen via an asteroid that smacked into Mexico millions of years ago. And then all the dinosaurs died. Yeah, last time an earthquake of that size hit the Earth, it literally caused one of the deadliest mass extinctions the world has ever known. So, needless to say, something like this happening would be catastrophic. And then the aliens are like, guys, this is gonna be really funny, and unleash a magnitude 13 earthquake in Tokyo. Do I even need to bring up how much destruction this would bring to the entire planet? Like, yeah, they showed the destruction brought to Tokyo itself, but honestly, I really think they're downplaying this. After that, all of Japan might as well just be off the damn map. There is literally no recovering from that. It is so Jover for them. Okay, what else? Oh, yeah. So remember how Gamera vs Zigra was just a big old advertisement for Expo 70? Well, Gamera vs Zigra is just one big advertisement for Kamagawa SeaWorld! If you're wondering why this place is so significant to this movie, then we are on the same page, because I don't know either. Doing some research into it, I learned that the park had recently opened at the time of the movie's release, and it was also the first aquarium in Japan to feature captive orcas. My best guess is that SeaWorld was just a big sponsor for the movie, so Daiei just took the offer and did as much as they could with it. And believe me when I say they did do a lot with it. They show off this place as much as feasibly possible. I already mentioned the huge chase between the kids and the alien girl, but the funniest one to me is in the opening. To put it simply, it's structured like an episode of Family Guy. They bring up how the kids' morning routines are similar to the ones of the animals at the park, and you swear it's gonna cut to the orcas being like,
"This act has been condemned by over 30 nations. I'm gonna kill you all."
That's what the entire first 5 minutes of the movie are. It's just, wow, look at those orcas. Wow, look at those sea lions. Wow, look at this dead dolphin.
What the fuck?
Also, I don't really need to mention it, but the incorporation of SeaWorld into this movie is nowhere near as good as Expo 70 was in Zigra. Expo 70 was a driving force in that film. The reason that film happens is that the MacGuffin is taken from the island for their sole purpose of it being displayed at the expo. There's no such significance in Zigra. Everyone's located at SeaWorld just because. I guess the sub that they take is from SeaWorld, but like, that's kinda it. Okay, that's everything I wanted to say. I don't like Gamera vs Zigra. It's boring, it's frustrating, and all the charm that the previous Gamera films had is just completely worn off here. It's just not good. It's one of those films that the more I think about it, the worse it gets. Nothing else to add. I'm giving this a 3 out of 10. So time to do a bit of lore dumping on you lot. Gamera vs Zigra was the last movie that Daiei, the creators of Gamera, made before shutting down due to bankruptcy later that same year. The Gamera series was put on hold for almost a decade until 1980, where a reformed Daiei film, separate from the original Daiei, it's important I make that distinction, decided to make a brand new Gamera film. They brought back Noriaki Yuasa and Nissan Takahashi, who I completely failed to mention that these two were the fathers of Gamera. Takahashi writing every Gamera film, and Yuasa directing all of them except for Baragon. Should have mentioned it earlier, but hey, better late than never, right? An all-new film was created, and that film in question was Gamera Super Monster. Gamera Super Monster is also not very good, but it's not terrible, shockingly enough. There's actually a couple of decent things in this movie that make it better than the previous film. First, I want to talk about the characters. The main kid in this is named Keiichi. There's not much to add to him. He plays the piano, and he has a pet turtle. That's kind of it. I do quickly want to talk about that though. They bring back the boy and his turtle thing that Gamera the Giant Monster had, in which the kid has to let his turtle go, and then he grows up to become Gamera, or at least the kid believes that he does. I do think it's neat that this idea was brought back in the last Gamera film. It makes it feel much more complete. Accompanying Keiichi are 3 superpowered space women named Kilara, Marsha, and Mitan, who defend the Earth and junk. They're being pursued by the evil spaceship called Xanon. Sorry, wrong movie. Wait, it is the right movie? Okay. They're being pursued by the evil spaceship called Xanon and another evil space woman named Garuge. Nothing to add here aside from that. Though I will say, 3 alien space women accompanied by a musically inclined little boy definitely does sound familiar, doesn't it? Hold on, let me pull up this movie's title card again. Okay, that makes much more sense. I want to bring up the evil space woman Garuge again for a minute. She's fine, definitely better than the other alien antagonists we've been getting. At the end of the movie, she actually goes through a bit of a redemption arc after having the kid and space women help her out and begins to see the beauty in the Earth. She sacrifices herself at the end of the movie so that the other space women can live freely. Wait, this also sounds familiar. Look, all I'm saying is that this movie walked so that Steven Universe could run. I think that the first 20 or so minutes of this movie were actually pretty good. It was a pretty nice and easy way to introduce us to these characters, the world that they lived in, and the threat that they have to face throughout the story. I like it. Something I failed to mention with a lot of the Showa Gamera films is their soundtracks. Aside from the Gamera March itself, there hasn't really been much to say. Until now, that is. Composer Shunsuke Kikuchi, who composed every Gamera film since Giron, kinda went off with this one for no reason. There's a lot of really memorable tunes in here. The main one that I want to mention is the brand new Gamera song for this called Love for Future, which is the main theme of this whole movie. Of course, the Gamera March is better and much more iconic, but I really like this one too. It makes for a really good battle theme for Gamera in this movie, and thankfully it's used a handful of times, all of which sound really good. That's basically it for positives of this movie. So what exactly is wrong with it? Basically everything else. The first and most obvious thing I want to bring up is the one thing that everyone brings up in relation to Gamera Super Monster, and that is the stock footage. I'd say a good 97% of all the tokusatsu scenes in this movie are reused from previous Gamera films. You got stuff from Baragon, Gauss, Virus, Giron, Jiger, and Zigra. Pretty much all of the battles from those movies are utilized here, and after a while, the movie just begins to crawl at a glacial pace. It starts out decently with Gauss and Zigra, but that's because the film was still allowed to breathe during that time and space out those scenes accordingly. But after a while, it seemed like the movie just started to run out of time, so they crammed the rest of these fights in the back half of the film, barely giving the character stuff any time to breathe whatsoever. This makes the back half of Super Monster a chore to get through. Most of the time, you're watching YouTube highlights of these fights that you've already seen the full versions of. They are edited down and given new music, so it is inherently a different experience to their original counterparts, but at the same time though, I don't see a reason as to why someone would actively want to watch these fights as opposed to the original movies that they're from. It ends up grinding Super Monster to a halt more often than not. And this doesn't even include the weird dream sequences where footage from several old anime series like Space Battleship Yamato and Galaxy Express 999 are utilized for some reason. Again, it's just there to pad out the runtime of this movie. There was an actual reason as to why there was so much stock footage in this movie though. Super Monster had an incredibly short production time and an incredibly small budget. Considering that there were fires at the old Daiei that burned and destroyed all of the old Showa Gamera props, there was nothing that they could do about the monsters. The only new props that were made for this film were a brand new Gamera suit that was only used in one brief shot, and a newly made flying prop that is certainly a looker. Noriaki Uwasa really hated having to do this with his Gamera films, so much so that he ended the film with Gamera sacrificing himself by running into Xanon as a way of saying, "There, now we cannot make more Gamera movies." He did not want to continue Gamera if this was the way they were going to be going, so he ended the series on his own terms, which is honestly pretty respectable on his behalf. Something that makes the stock footage kind of weird to me is how the monsters in this universe work. So it's established very early on that we are not in the Showa Gamera universe anymore. We are in a completely different world. Gamera is referred to as fictional by numerous characters in the story, but when the monsters start invading, they're treated as being real. They interact with the world the same way any other monster would in the previous Gamera movies. And then there's Gamera, who I guess was brought to life via the powers of the space women, and this might have a connection to the turtle that Keiichi had earlier in the film, but again, it's made very unclear. One last thing that I want to mention before I wrap up this review is the effects in this movie. Why do they all look so weird? 90% of the time, this movie looks like a normal movie, but when it needs to switch to a VFX shot, suddenly it looks like it was filmed on a VHS? I don't know, maybe it's just me, but whenever these switches were made in the film, it was pretty distracting and I could always notice it. Anyways, that's basically all I had to say about Gamera Super Monster. Not much on this one, but there wasn't much to say about it anyways. I did not like this movie either. There were plenty of things in here that I did like, such as the characters and the score, but overall this movie kind of bored me to tears by the very end. It's a shame that the last Showa Gamera film was a dud, but at least it wasn't completely terrible and that there were things in it I could honestly say I enjoyed. I'm gonna give Gamera Super Monster a 4 out of 10. And with that, we've completed Showa Gamera. I'm very happy that I finally had the chance to see all these movies for the first time. I wish that most of it wasn't in such a time-crunched manner, but regardless, I'm happy that I did do it. While Showa Gamera definitely fell off towards the end, I'm happy to report that overall, I enjoyed this series of films, flaws and all. They're fun and quaint little kids films that, while distinctly still manage to be their own thing, still manage to deliver on a lot of the fun kaiju action that other films at the time were doing. And while they aren't perfect, I'd be happy to revisit them in the future. If you haven't seen them yet, then I'd recommend checking out a couple of them. They aren't for everyone, but even if you don't like the overall package, there should still be something in there for you to enjoy about the Showa era of the friend of all children. I recognize that there were a lot of things that I failed to mention here, and that this probably wasn't as in-depth of a review series as some of you were hoping for, but I'm glad that I did get what I wanted to say about these movies into the world for everyone to hear about. Who knows, maybe a more comprehensive look at Showa Gamera is in order in the future. It won't be soon. After this series is done and I review Gamera Rebirth, I don't want to step anywhere near this giant turtle for a good while, but that might be something on the table. As for what's next, it's time that we go into the 90s and beyond as we look at how Gamera made some of the most acclaimed kaiju films of all time. But again, that will be for next time. As to wrap up this video though, what do you guys think of the last two Showa Gamera films? How do you think they rank amongst all the other Gamera films? Be sure to sound off those thoughts and more in the comments section down below, and be sure to follow me on my social medias and join my Discord server if you want updates on upcoming videos or just want to hear my goofy rants about all sorts of stuff. And if you liked what you saw and want to see more, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. Either way, I'm Sam the Giganfan, hoping that you all have a lovely rest of your day, and telling you all to wash your hands.